The wind howled through Chicago's steel canyons, but couldn't drown out the scream in my chest. I stood outside the sleek glass tower of Pinnacle Bank, staring up at the penthouse where he lived, Elliot Kane, the man who'd turned my world upside down in one reckless night. I was pregnant, and the father was a stranger who'd left me with nothing but a business card and a heartbeat growing inside me. My name is Jamie Harper, a 28-year-old graphic designer scraping by in a city that chewed up dreamers like me. I wasn't supposed to be here, shivering in a thrift store coat, clutching a positive pregnancy test. 3 months ago, I was just another face in the crowd at a rooftop gala, a nobody who'd snuck into a world of champagne and power. That's where I met him, Elliot, the 35-year-old CEO of Pinnacle Bank, all sharp suits and sharper eyes. He was cold, untouchable, the kind of man who could silence a room with a glance. But that night, something in him cracked, and I was the one who fell through. It started with a spilled drink. I'd been balancing a tray of hors d'oeuvres, filling in for a friend who worked catering. The gala was at the Pinnacle, the bank's crown jewel, a rooftop glittering with Chicago's elite. I was invisible until I tripped, sending a glass of red wine splashing across Elliot's pristine white shirt. The crowd gasped, and I froze, expecting a firing squad of glares. Instead, he laughed, a low, rumbling sound that sent shivers down my spine. "Careful," he said, his voice like velvet over steel. "You're making a mess of me." I mumbled apologies, cheeks burning, but he waved them off. "Stay," he said, and I did. We talked about art, about the city, about nothing and everything. His eyes, gray as a winter storm, held mine too long. I wasn't naive. I knew men like him didn't linger on men like me. I was scruffy, broke, with paint-stained hands and a life that didn't belong in his world. But when he asked me to follow him to his penthouse after the gala, I went. One night, I told myself. One night to feel alive. The elevator ride to his apartment was silent, charged. His penthouse was a fortress of glass and steel, all sharp edges and cold luxury. But when he kissed me, it was fire, desperate, consuming, like he'd been starving for something he couldn't name. We didn't talk about who we were or what this meant. It was just us tangled in sheets, his hands mapping my skin like I was the only thing that mattered. For those hours, I wasn't invisible. I was his. Morning came too fast. He was gone when I woke, a business card on the pillow with his name and a scrawled note. "Thank you." No number, no promises. I left, thinking I'd never see him again. But 6 weeks later, nausea hit, then the test, then the truth. I was pregnant. A trans man, I never thought this could happen. Not after years on hormones, not after accepting my body as mine. Yet here I was, carrying the child of a man who didn't even know my last name. Now, standing outside his building, I felt the weight of it all. Chicago's wind stung my face, but I couldn't move. What did I expect? To march into his office and demand. What? Love? Responsibility? Elliot Kane was a fortress, a man who built walls higher than the skyline. But I wasn't here for him. I was here for the life inside me, for the chance to be more than a mistake. I pushed through the revolving doors, heart pounding. The lobby was a cathedral of marble and glass, every surface polished to a sheen. The receptionist, a woman with a smile as sharp as her heels, eyed me like I was a stray dog. "Can I help you?" she asked, her tone implying I was already lost. "I need to see Elliot Kane," I said, voice steadier than I felt. "Do you have an appointment?" She didn't even look up from her screen. "No, but it's urgent. Tell him it's Jamie." Her fingers paused, and she raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Kane doesn't take walk-ins." "Please," I said, leaning closer. "Just tell him I'm here. He'll want to know." She sighed, picking up the phone. I stood there, clutching the test in my pocket, feeling the world tilt. What was I doing? This wasn't a fairy tale. Men like Elliot didn't rewrite their lives for someone like me. But I'd spent too long being invisible, letting the world decide my worth. Not this time. The receptionist hung up, her face unreadable. "Take the elevator to the 47th floor." His assistant will meet you. My stomach lurched as the elevator climbed. The city sprawled below, a maze of lights and lives, but all I could think about was him. Would he remember me? Would he care? The doors opened, and a woman in a crisp blazer led me to a corner office. Elliot stood behind a glass desk, his silhouette framed against the skyline. He was just as I remembered, tall, broad-shouldered, his dark hair swept back, his eyes cold until they landed on me. Then something flickered. Surprise? Recognition? I couldn't tell. "Jamie," he said, his voice low, like he was testing the word. "What are you doing here?" I opened my mouth, but the words stuck. How do you tell a stranger he's going to be a father? How do you ask a man like him to care? I took a breath, steadying myself. "We need to talk," I said. "It's about that night." His jaw tightened, and for a moment I saw the walls go up. But I wasn't backing down. Not now, not ever. Elliot's office was a cage of glass and power, every inch designed to intimidate. He stood there, unreadable, his gray eyes scanning me like I was a puzzle he didn't want to solve. I felt small, but I held my ground, the pregnancy test burning a hole in my pocket. That night, I repeated, my voice steady despite the tremor in my chest. It changed everything. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed, the city glittering behind him like a crown. "You'll need to be more specific," he said, his tone clipped professional. It stung, but I wasn't surprised. Men like Elliot didn't cling to memories of one-night stands. I stepped closer, ignoring the assistant hovering by the door. "I'm pregnant," I said, the words blunt, raw. "It's yours." The air shifted, heavy with silence. His face didn't change, but his hands tightened on the edge of the desk, knuckles white. "That's impossible," he said, almost to himself. "You're trans," I finished, unflinching. "Yeah, I am. But it's not impossible. It happened." He stared at me, and for the first time, I saw a crack in his armor, a flicker of something human. "How?" he asked, his voice softer now, almost fragile. "I didn't think it could happen either," I admitted. "I've been on hormones for years. But the tests don't lie. I'm 3 months along." He turned away, pacing to the window, his reflection sharp against the glass. "This is unexpected," he said, choosing his words like they were contracts. "What do you want from me?" The question hit like a slap. I wanted to scream that I didn't know, that I was terrified, that I didn't ask for this either. But I swallowed the anger. "I want you to know," I said. "This is your child. I'm not here to beg for anything, but I'm not doing this alone." He turned back, his eyes searching mine. "You don't know me, Jamie. I don't do this." He gestured vaguely, like he could wave away the reality of us. "Then tell me who you are." I shot back. "Because I deserve to know who's tied to this kid." He exhaled, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not good at this," he said, almost a confession. "I don't let people in. That night, it was a mistake." The word cut deeper than I expected. "A mistake," I echoed, my voice rising. "That's what you call it? I'm standing here carrying your child, and you're calling it a mistake?" He winced just barely. "That's not what I meant," he said, but it was too late. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. I turned to leave, my hand on the door, when he spoke again. "Wait, please." I stopped, but I didn't turn around. "Why should I?" "Because I don't know what to do," he said, his voice raw, unguarded. "But I don't want you to walk away." I faced him, heart pounding. His walls were still there, but they were crumbling just enough for me to see the man behind them. "Then talk to me," I said. "No games, no corporate bullshit. Just you." He nodded, slow, like he was making a deal with himself. "Okay," he said. "Let's talk." We sat on a leather couch in his office, the city humming below us. He told me about his life, not the polished version in Forbes, but the real one. His parents, cold and distant, raised him to win, not to feel. He'd built Pinnacle Bank from the ground up, but it cost him everything else. Friends, love, trust. They were luxuries he couldn't afford. That night on the rooftop, he said, was the first time in years he'd felt alive. "I saw you," he said, his voice low, "and you were real. Not like them." He nodded toward the city, the world of power and pretense. I didn't know how to handle it. I told him my story too, growing up in a small Illinois town, fighting to be seen as myself, moving to Chicago to chase a dream that kept slipping away. I told him about the fear, the joy, the confusion of carrying this child. For the first time, we weren't strangers. We were two people, scared and flawed, tied together by something bigger than us. "Jamie," he said, his hand hovering near mine, "I don't know how to be a father. I don't even know how to be a partner. But I want to try." I looked at him, searching for a lie, but all I saw was truth. "Okay," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "But this isn't just about you. It's about us, all three of us." He nodded, and for the first time, I saw something like hope in his eyes. But hope was fragile, and Chicago was a city that broke fragile things. I didn't know what came next, but I knew one thing. I wasn't invisible anymore. The weeks that followed were a blur of cautious steps and unspoken promises. Elliot didn't vanish like I'd feared. He called, texted, showed up at my tiny Logan Square apartment with takeout and questions about my health. It was awkward, like we were learning a dance neither of us knew. But he was trying, and that was enough for now. Chicago was changing with the seasons, the leaves turning gold along Lake Michigan. I'd walk the paths near the Adler Planetarium, trying to make sense of my life. I was still a nobody, still scraping by, but now I was carrying a future I hadn't planned. Elliot's world was different. Boardrooms, private jets, a life where money solved problems. I wondered if we could ever bridge that gap. One evening, he invited me to dinner at his penthouse. I hesitated, remembering the cold luxury of that night, but I went. The table was set with candles, the skyline glowing through the windows. He'd cooked, badly, but the effort made me smile. "I'm not good at this," he admitted, poking at a slightly burned steak. "But I wanted to do something for you." I laughed, the sound easing the tension. "It's terrible," I said, "but I appreciate it." We ate, talked, laughed some more. He told me about his childhood, about the pressure to be perfect, about the loneliness of being untouchable. I told him about my art, my dreams of designing something that mattered. For a moment, we weren't a CEO and a nobody. We were just Jamie and Elliot, two people trying to figure it out. But the world wasn't as kind as that moment. The next day, a gossip blog posted a blurry photo of us leaving his building. "Pinnacle CEO's mystery man," the headline screamed. My phone buzzed with notifications, friends, strangers, even my estranged parents. The comments were brutal. "Gold digger. Freak. He's using him." I wanted to disappear, but Elliot was furious. He called in lawyers, had the post taken down, but the damage was done. Chicago's elite were circling, and I was the prey. "They don't know you," he said, pacing his office when I showed up, shaken. "They don't know us." "Us?" I asked, my voice sharp. "Is there an us, Elliot? Or am I just a problem you're managing?" He stopped, his face softening. "You're not a problem," he said. "You're everything I didn't know I needed." The words hit hard, but I wasn't ready to trust them. "Then prove it," I said, "because I'm not here to be your secret." He reached for my hand, and I let him take it. "I'm not hiding you," he said. "I'm figuring this out, same as you." That night, he took me to a quiet jazz club in Wicker Park, away from the city's prying eyes. We sat in a corner, his knee brushing mine, the music wrapping around us like a shield. For the first time, I felt like we could be real, not a scandal, not a mistake, but something worth fighting for. But reality doesn't let you hide forever. A week later, I got a call from my doctor. The pregnancy was high risk, complications from my hormone history, she said. I needed rest, monitoring, maybe even surgery. I sat on my couch, staring at the ultrasound photo, the tiny shape that was already my world. I didn't tell Elliot right away. I needed to know if he was in this for real, not just for the storybook moments. When I finally told him, he didn't hesitate. "Whatever you need," he said, his voice fierce. "I'm here." I wanted to believe him. But as the city lights flickered outside my window, I couldn't shake the feeling that our story was just beginning, and the hardest chapters were still to come. The hospital became my second home, a sterile maze of beeping monitors and worried glances. The complications weren't getting better. My doctor, a kind woman with tired eyes, explained the risks: preterm labor, possible surgery, a long road ahead. I nodded, numb, clutching Elliot's hand. He hadn't left my side since I told him, but I could see the strain in his eyes, the weight of a life he hadn't planned. Chicago's winter was brutal, snow piling up outside my apartment. Elliot insisted I move into his penthouse, where he could make sure I had everything I needed. I resisted at first. My pride was all I had left, but I gave in. His place was warmer, safer, and I was too tired to fight. He hired a private nurse, stocked the fridge with organic food, even bought a crib, though it sat unassembled in a corner. Just in case, he said, his voice soft. Living with him was strange. He was still the cold-blooded CEO in public, all sharp suits and sharper decisions. But at home, he was different. He'd sit with me on the couch, reading reports while I sketched, his hand resting on my knee like it belonged there. We didn't talk about love, but it was there, growing quietly in the spaces between us. The gossip blogs didn't stop. Every trip to the hospital, every public outing was fodder for headlines. CEO's pregnant boyfriend, the scandal that could topple Pinnacle. Elliot's board was restless, whispering about optics and stock prices. One night, I overheard him on the phone, his voice low and furious. "I don't care what they think," he snapped. "This is my life." I confronted him after. "Is this going to cost you everything?" I asked, my voice trembling. "Your career, your reputation?" He looked at me, his eyes fierce. "You think I'd trade you for that? You and our kid. You're worth more than any of it." I wanted to believe him, but doubt lingered. I wasn't just carrying a child. I was carrying his world, and it was heavy. One night, unable to sleep, I found him in his study, staring at a photo of us from a jazz club. "I'm scared," he admitted, his voice barely audible. "I've never had anything to lose before." I took his hand, pulling him close. "Me too," I said, "but we're in this together." The next day, he did something I didn't expect. He called a press conference, standing in front of Pinnacle's logo, cameras flashing. I watched from his office, heart in my throat. "I'm going to be a father," he said, his voice steady. "And I'm proud of the man who's making that possible. Jamie Harper is my partner, and we're building a family." The room erupted, questions flying, but he didn't flinch. He was claiming us, publicly, unapologetically. For the first time, I felt seen, not as a scandal, but as his. But the world doesn't let you win that easily. That night, someone leaked my medical records to the press. Details of my transition, my pregnancy, my risks, splashed across every tabloid. I sat in Elliot's penthouse, staring at the headlines, feeling exposed, violated. "Who did this?" I whispered, tears burning my eyes. Elliot's face was thunder. "I'll find out," he said, his voice dangerous. "And they'll pay." We didn't sleep that night. He held me, promising to fix it, but I knew some things couldn't be fixed. The world had seen me at my most vulnerable. I didn't know if I could forgive it, or him. The leak was a betrayal, a knife in the heart of the life we were building. Elliot hired investigators, combed through his company's records, and found the culprit, a board member desperate to push him out. The man was fired, sued, disgraced, but it didn't erase the damage. My story was out there, raw and exposed, and I felt like I was drowning in Chicago's judgment. Elliot was relentless, shielding me from the press, hiring security, even stepping back from Pinnacle to focus on us. But I was spiraling. The pregnancy was harder now, the complications worsening. I spent more time in the hospital than out, hooked to monitors, praying for the baby to be okay. Elliot was there for every appointment, every scare, but I could see the toll it took on him, the guilt, the fear. One night, in a quiet hospital room, I broke. "I can't do this," I sobbed, clutching the ultrasound photo. "I'm not strong enough." He knelt beside my bed, his hands cupping my face. "You are," he said, his voice fierce. "You're the strongest person I know, and I'm not going anywhere." His words anchored me. But the fear didn't vanish. The weeks blurred, each day a battle to keep going. Then, at 34 weeks, the baby came, too early, too small, but alive. A boy, with Elliot's gray eyes and my stubborn jaw. We named him Noah, after the survivor who rebuilt the world. Holding him, I felt a love I didn't know was possible. Elliot sat beside me, his hand on Noah's tiny head, tears in his eyes. "We did this," he whispered. "We made him." The world outside didn't stop. The headlines faded, replaced by new scandals, but the whispers lingered. I didn't care. Noah was our truth, our reason. Elliot stepped down as CEO, choosing us over Pinnacle. We moved to a quiet house outside Chicago, away from the city's glare. It wasn't perfect. There were fights, doubts, moments when we didn't know if we'd make it. But we kept going, building a life from the ashes of who we used to be. One evening, as Noah slept, Elliot pulled me onto the porch, the stars bright above us. "I never thought I could have this," he said, his voice soft. "A family. You." I leaned into him, feeling the weight of everything we'd survived. "We're not a mistake," I said. "We're a miracle." He kissed me, slow and sure, and I knew he was right. Chicago had tried to break us, but we'd found something stronger. Love, messy and real, that carried us through. Noah was our proof, our promise, our forever.